You are listening to I Am Refocused podcast with your host, Shemaiah Reed. This podcast is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. Now, let's tune into today's podcast.
Hey guys, this is I Am Refocused podcast, and you know, if it's Thursday, we are here at Rockefeller's Barbershop. Shout out to the owner, Rico Rodriguez. He's holding it down for us for so long, and I'm so grateful for people like him in San Antonio who's taking the leadership to just give you guys access to this great podcast, because without him, we wouldn't have a place to do this. So we thank you, Rico. Today we have an awesome show lined up for you. We have Mr. Dr. Ed Newton, pastor of CBC Community Bible. I just want to say, sir, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here to I Am Refocused podcast.
Tremendous privilege to be here today. Huge fans of you guys and Rico holding it down, bringing the great fades into this podcast.
I love that. And just right off the jump, man, I just want to say what you do for San Antonio at your church is very inspiring. Is always just a motivational feel when you watch online, if you're there at the church. What is it about San Antonio that just excites you, man?
I've never been in love with a city. Born in Charlotte, North Carolina, raised in Orlando, Florida, moved to Memphis, and then went back to Orlando, and then our journey ended up here. But to be a part of San Antonio, there's so much history here. It's a city we celebrate 300 years. Actually, we're in 301 right now in our existence as a city. But to understand the significance of how our city was started was tremendous. It was at the heart of the message of Jesus and the message of inclusion, and to understand that there were a group of people that would desire to give their life to so much more is the roots of what our city's about. And so to be in a melting pot and to be in a multicultural city that sees diversity as not division, but as opportunity to expand our knowledge of who we are as humans. And so for me, being in a blended family, when I say blended, my wife's Filipino, and we have 3 daughters that obviously bear a resemblance of my wife and I, in me being extremely white. So there's some resemblance between both of us, but to have an African-American son. So for us to be in a very diverse family, to be in a city that's diverse, to be in a church that's diverse, it prevents this mindset that it's us versus them. It's we. Yeah. And long answer to that, but it's one of the many reasons why I love this town.
Man, that's awesome. San Antonio, man, is a beautiful city, like you said. Take us back to Mr. Ed Newton, Dr. Ed Newton. Back in the day, tell us a little bit about life growing up, man.
Yeah, both my parents are deaf, and so that was a source of conflict and trouble for me, because when you live in a deaf world where your parents talk with their hands, and you live in a hearing world, you are the bridge in between. So there was immediate hardship. There was immediate difficulty. And I think for me personally, what I saw as a challenge eventually became the very thing that would define me. So I look back on my life, and when you have 2 deaf parents, you think about just the rhythms of society. Whether you're going to a fast food restaurant, you can't communicate. You depend on your son to translate and to interpret. And once more, this is why there's such beauty in living in San Antonio, because there's a people group that understands what it means to be, if you will, a minority. Mm-hmm. And so just was thinking about this week in light of Martin Luther King and what he stood for and why it's so impactful to me. Being a minority doesn't mean that you're from just another country. Mm-hmm. Being a minority is, at a lot of levels, that understanding that being a part of a group of people that have been discriminated against, you get to see what it means to be in a first generation, second generation, third generation. So my mom and dad living in a world that, as a minority, me being a second generation, seeing that, ultimately being impacted by that, I had a choice. I could get better or I can get better. And so I'm going to have to make a decision personally to be the answer and not the agitation to the problem. And so I can live with a victim mentality. Why me? Or I can look at that and say, okay, there's something significant. What I would see as a setback, ultimately God wanted to deem as a comeback. Mm-hmm. And so my whole life was in this, I'm going to be a voice for my parents, but little did I know that I would be this individual that God would cultivate and shape behind the curtain in ambiguity and obscurity, that he was teaching me how to speak to people from all walks of life, whether that was in a medical profession or in the marketplace, or maybe in a bill discrepancy with the light and energy company going, hey, our bill's not right. And they're like, hey, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 10. Mm-hmm. Like, why are you calling us? I'm like, because my dad can't talk and he's got a bill discrepancy and there's no relay service. Wow. So, you kind of look at that and you go, now at 43, pastor of Community Bible, you go, God, I wouldn't trade any of those experiences because they've shaped me and defined me, allowed me to see people for who they are. So all of that's the quick answer, but there's a lot of pain in the journey. There's a lot of hardship. There's a lot of discrimination to the point of my mom and dad couldn't hold down a job, and because one day a boss would walk in and go, hey, it's difficult to talk to you. Well, I don't understand you. And because of a lack of desire to create a bridge, they would just go, it's easier to move you on and find somebody else in that situation. So there's a lot of days we just try to figure this out. But I'm grateful as I look back on that and go, okay, you taught me, God, what it meant to really be shaped in the fire. So it allows you to withstand anything that comes good and bad because, like, for example, success doesn't define me. My position at the church doesn't define me. What I drive doesn't define me. The suit I got on today doesn't define me. I mean, it's what the Apostle Paul would say, you have much, you have little. It's in the midst of all of that, you're just thankful that God gave you breath in your lungs. And so it developed and forged in my heart an attitude of gratitude. But God, I am who I am today because of the chapters that you brought me through in adversity and difficulty. And may I never forget. And so that's the mission every day, is that you wake up and never forget where you came from.
The key thing that you just said in that piece was deciding to get better and not bitter. Because there's so many times, I mean, we all can relate to this. Anyone listening to this podcast right now, we all had seasons in our life where we've just been beyond frustrated. Whether you're trying to meet a goal and you just keep falling short, and you're like, God, why? Like, why am I going through this? Yeah, because you're busy watching everyone else. It looks like they're happy. It looks like they're living life great, and you're like looking at your own plate and it's like, what's going on, God? Like, what did I do? Yeah. Have you ever had moments where you had gotten so frustrated that you just felt like, is it worth it? And if so, how did you get over that challenge?
I think there was a moment when I was a high school senior that I realized that I had dreams and I didn't know how to get there. I wanted to accomplish something, but what I thought would be the doorway closed, and it was in the realm of education. So when you can't pass the SAT, which is the standard achievement test, that is the door into college. For example, like my mom and dad never finished the 7th and 8th grade. And so they couldn't even help me with homework. And so I'm struggling academically, but I don't know why. I realize I have some attention deficit disorders. I realize that for me, I got some learning disabilities. And sometimes for me, reading comprehension was very difficult. And so you get to be a senior and you're like, whoa, like I'm weeks away from quote unquote the real world. And that is, you got to be at school every day and there's an expectancy to be there, but then when you graduate, it's like, now what do you do? Yeah. And when a guidance counselor looks at you and goes, hey, you're not college material, but that's what you want to do, you look back at that, and either you could see that as a moment of defining, that you've labeled me and I'm just going to allow that label to stick to me, or I'm going to choose to live my life in a motivation to prove you wrong. And that's where, for me, the drive and determination determine my destiny. So when somebody says you can, or somebody says to you, you won't, there's a moment that you go one or two directions. You believe them and you, unfortunately, you just lay down and you give up. Or you choose not to bow or to bend or to buckle, but instead you begin to go, I will not allow that to be my journey. And so obviously with a faith component, you just understand nothing is too hard for God. Maybe if Jesus could come back from the dead, there's nothing that's too impossible for him. And so for me, then you look at just circumstances in my life where I had a high school basketball coach that was an advocate for me to go on and play at another school in college, and kind of did some, if you will, some preliminary conversation to go, hey, he struggles academically, but he just needs a shot. Mm-hmm. So I look back on my life, and I say this a lot, I stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm like the turtle on the fence post. I don't know how I got here, but the view's unbelievable. And for anybody listening today that because I don't understand the analogy of a turtle on the fence post. Turtles don't climb up fence posts. So yes. Somebody picked that turtle up and positioned it and postured it and propped it up. So somewhere along the line, I look back to my grandmother. I look back to my basketball coach in high school and college. I look back to a math teacher. I look back to my mom and dad. They're very much a part of the mix. I look back at people in my life, and it was just, in essence, they were just one at a time, just picking me up and saying there's something greater for you. But sometimes for all of us maybe listening, we're our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And so when you go through hardship and you go through difficulty, there's a tendency to have some insecurities that you unfortunately carry with you on the journey. So I got baggage. I still got baggage. Mm-hmm. But what I'm understanding is that my past doesn't define me. My future's been written for me. And so I got to choose to walk in that destiny that every single person listening today has a destiny. There is a journey that has an incredible source of good that comes out of it because we serve a good Father. And I read today, James 1:17, every good and perfect gift comes from above. So God desires to bless his kids. As a dad of 4 kids, I want to bless my kids.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's moments I hold back from my kids because my kids couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. Or they wouldn't be able to process it, or matter of fact, it could, in essence, in quotations, spoil them or make them dependent when they need to become independent. And so as I look back at my journey, I'm just grateful for the fact that I stand on the shoulder. I speak today with a lot of people that are in the journey of Edmund, that believed in me, that rallied around me and said, hey, you can do this. We believe in you. And then there were people along the way that gave me an opportunity when I probably didn't deserve the opportunity. It's one thing to be invited to the dance.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be invited back to the dance.
It's true.
So a lot of folks get moments and opportunity and then blow it.
Yeah. Because
they didn't have the character and integrity that keep them there. John Wooden, great basketball coach, said this: talent will get you to the top. There's a lot of talented people. Mm-hmm. But then he went on to say this, but character will keep you there.
It's true.
So it's one thing to become successful. It's another thing to live a life of fame and renown or even accomplishment. But we have a tendency, I love what Proverbs says, a man will be tested by his praise.
Yeah.
It's one thing to respond in the midst of criticism, such as somebody saying you can't do something. So a lot of times somebody is forged by the criticism they face. Mm-hmm. They choose not to get bitter, they get better. But it's interesting. So all of a sudden you have arrived and you have accomplished something of great significance and success. How do you handle that?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, do you act that way? So now you went from, I was nobody, and now you become somebody. Mm. Now, do you walk around still thinking you're somebody? Causing everybody else to feel less than?
That's good.
And so there's that moment where you go, okay, going back to my past. My past doesn't define me. My future's written for me, but I'm grateful for my past because God helped me understand something. You'll never be enough with it. Mm-hmm. If you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it.
Man.
And so for many of us, we think if I can own that, if I can drive that, if I can get to that, mm-hmm. If you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it, which means you'll have to find something else to get.
Yeah.
And then your whole life is, as I say, you're looking at the light on the top of the hill, and then you get to that light, and then you look at another light, and and there is something about drive and determination and keep getting better. Mm-hmm. But if it's about significance, about your self-worth, mm-hmm. if your self-worth is determined by the external material things of the world, it'll never be enough.
That's true.
Ever.
And that's true because that wants me to ask you this next question. When you got one-on-one with God, in faith, you began your faith journey. What was going through your life at the time? And if it was a wake-up call, if it was this light came on, what was that for you?
Well, not growing up in church. I did, but it was more along the lines of Christmas and Easter. And so for me personally, I think my Damascus Road experience is when I was 15 years old. My mom and dad dragged me to church against my will on a Wednesday night it was my 15th birthday. I'll never forget it. And they just told me, because I was almost expelled out of middle school in the 8th grade for various reasons, and I should have been. But somehow my dad just said to the principal and administration, just give my son one more chance. So I get into high school. It's the beginning of school. It's October. I'm 15. My mom and dad have just been very patient and long-suffering with me, and they dragged me to church on a Wednesday night. And I'm upset because my parents have told me right before we walked into church, there's no gift cards, there's no cake, there's no presents. Hey, you've been very difficult. We can't reward that. And so I'm sitting in church, just kind of like, man, it's my birthday. I'm at church. And my mom and dad just told me we're not going to even have a party. We're not going out to eat. There's nothing special. But man, God got a hold of my heart that night because I realized the decisions that I was making was not only affecting me, but it was affecting my family. They wanted to celebrate me, but they couldn't. And then that night I heard about the message of Jesus, and it was life-changing. I'm not saying that immediately my life went in one direction, but it began to slowly tilt in that direction over a period of time because I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody that was pouring into me. But when I was in the 10th grade, that happened, and that was the game changer for me, was when I had a youth pastor at the church that my mom and dad ended up going to that just took an interest in me and visited me on a Monday night and just invited me to be a part of what they're doing, and then would give me responsibility. Yeah. And so he's one of the giants that I stand on the shoulders of. And so 15 years old, life was unraveling at the seams, at very much like many teenagers, but some of the choices that I was making and the experimentation of drugs and doing things that were illegal and stealing stuff and just stupid. But I wanted to fit in, man. I wanted to fit in so bad. And sometimes what people celebrate is what oftentimes people imitate.
That's true.
So when you listen to music that celebrates something,
yeah,
that's very opposite of the virtues that you're being taught by your parents, then you imitate that. So whatever's celebrated, we imitate. That can be good or bad.
That's true.
And I had more people that were celebrating the bad, and so I just was imitating that.
That's crazy because I feel anybody in faith, we all have those crossroads where it's like, do I continue the path I've been used to, that I'm comfortable with? Because it's not necessary that people are bashing you.
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, it's like, if I don't make that switch, life is just going to go down.
Absolutely.
But when you make that switch, even when you decide to make that switch to follow God, follow Christ, it's a long journey. It's not a sprint. It's not like tomorrow is happy days. And how do you keep yourself focused on God, even when storms seem to keep coming when you're doing the right things?
I don't know if I'm the expert and even worthy to give an answer to that. I just know where I came from and where I'm at today is only because of the hand of God. This is going to sound so elementary. I just don't want to go back to me running my own life. So for me, if where I'm at today is because of the hand of God and the people that He's put in my life, and I know what my life was like before I let the hand of God direct me, I'm going, even in my moments of, God, are you sure? God's going, hey, you wouldn't be at this place if it wasn't for me divinely intervening in your life. So if you want to take back the reins, you want to take back the wheel, you could do that. So for me, it's the miracles that have happened in my life that reminds me, and this is a statement from C.S. Lewis, when I don't see His hand, I trust His heart. Yeah. I may not see the hand of God today, specifically leading me in decision making, or maybe I find myself going, God, you're silent. Where are you? It's just a reminder that the fact that I'm here today, as I go back through the chapters of my life, I'm going, God, only you could have done that. So why would I try to all of a sudden take over now? Like, God, I'm good. Like, hey, you did well to get me here.
We do that, though.
We do it all the time. It's like, you did well to get me here, but I got this.
We get comfortable.
We get comfortable. And I just, so for me, that's the mindset of, but also in the position that I'm in and the responsibility that I have, And just the gravity of leading the community Bible church, it causes me to wake up, brother, every day and go, God, if you don't help me, I will fail miserably.
Yeah.
I'm not that smart. I'm not that good. I'm not that articulate. I'm not that educated. I need wisdom. I need intervention. I need counsel. I need people that you put in my path. So it's an honor to be on the podcast. I mean, but I feel so unworthy because a lot of the lessons I've learned in life have been through the unfortunate mistakes that I've made.
I mean, this podcast, it represents broken people.
I'm one of them.
And when they tell a story, and we're coming up on break, but when they tell a story, it's somebody somewhere out there that can connect to that story. Because that's why when God said, I knew you.
Yeah.
He knew you.
That's right.
He didn't say that he kind of knew.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say, who's that kid?
Yeah.
No, he knew.
Absolutely.
So if he knew you, then he knew the struggles that you would face. And I like to say your pain is somebody's medicine. Because if you've been broken down, you've been broken down for a reason.
That's right.
And if you survive that on top of that, just like yourself, you get to share it with the whole world.
That's a great line. Somebody, you said it so fast, I think it needs to be repeated again.
I don't know if I can say it because I don't think it was me talking.
It's so good, man. Somebody needs to tweet that.
Yeah, I can't repeat it because I don't know. I think
you're pain is someone else's medicine. I heard it. I wrote it down on my heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And yes, we are coming on break. In the next segment, we're going to talk about leadership and community and what's going on at Community Bible. But I would like to end this segment with what you were just talking about. Broken people, they do great things. I'm going to say why in the next break. Don't touch that iPhone. You're listening to I Am Focused Podcast. We're here with Dr. Pastor Ed Newton from Community Bible Church here at Rico's Place, Rockefeller Barbershop. Don't you stop listening, man. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Rockefeller's Barbershop. This is the day that the Lord has made, and I will be blessed and be glad in Him. Today I want to introduce myself. My name is Rico Rodriguez at Rockefeller's Barbershop here in San Antonio, Texas, 1733 Babcock Road. My phone number is 210-782-5188. And again, we do walk-ins on Sundays. You are listening to I Am Refocused Podcast on iHeartRadio. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
Does your website need more traffic? Well, visit overflowcafe.com today. They make websites popular, and over 41,000 people use their service to gain more customers. They are winning at business. What about you? Visit overflowcafe.com today.
Hey, we are back. I Am Refocused Podcast here at Rockefeller's Barbershop. Shout out to Rico Rodriguez. If you need a haircut, make sure you stop by and show my boy some love. We are still here with Dr. Pastor Ed Newton from Community Bible. Man, I wanted to say thank you so much again because I know you're super busy. And for you to say yes, man, it's an honor for us to have you speak.
I believe in you guys.
I appreciate that, man.
I mean, you left a footprint in the print world, the digital world, and now in the podcast world. I mean, you're in every stratosphere right now trying to make a difference. So,
yes, sir. And before we close the first half, you were talking about brokenness. And people who are broken, they have opportunity to do a lot of great things because it's like details. You know, the pixels in the picture, you know, it's the minutes we spend day in, day out, whether we're having a good day or a bad day. But once you wake up and start paying attention to how you spend those minutes, you might be broken, but if it's God calling you back and you just, I've been there, you're just being rebellious and you're like, nah, like, where were you when I was hurt? You know, where were you when I scraped my knees? You know, where were you when I was crying? You know, where were you? We all have that season of life where we have been so broken that we don't feel like giving up. We just feel no. speak on that, because there can be someone out there who's just numb to the pain. And they're not embracing change or embracing the opportunity to reconnect with that.
Well, for many of us, we understand that we are broken. But when we think about brokenness, oftentimes we have to understand the level of brokenness that we're talking about. So for us, there's a lot of things that have either been done to us that's created the brokenness, or we have done. And so for those that are listening right now that have made decisions that's created the brokenness, for many of us, it's that moment where you go, man, I shouldn't have done that. And so you live in the guilt. And so there's a guilt culture that you operate in, which that guilt culture transitions into a slavery culture. But God came to set you free from that. And so when you think about the fact that we are broken, oftentimes we find ourselves going, I made a decision that broke this relationship, or my career is broken because I did something I shouldn't have done, or it's a decision that we made. But for somebody that's listening today that has been the unfortunate object of somebody's narcissism or selfish desire that caused them to be taken advantage of, that they go, how do I move forward? I just want somebody to listen today to know that we serve a God that takes broken pieces and makes masterpieces. And so oftentimes, for example, let me see if I can use this illustration. Met a lot of elderly people that would crochet or make blankets or even scarves. I have a scarf that I wear that somebody made from Lima, Peru. And so when somebody is stitching something that is, as it's draped over their leg, they're running the thread through this fabric. But envision somebody sitting at the feet of the one who is stitching a garment together or a blanket together. From underneath, they see the bottom. And the bottom of that looks messy. It looks like strings that are misplaced, that they're not in rhythm, the colors don't match at times. But watch this. But from the one who has the plan in their mind and heart, they see what nobody else sees. But they see the finished product. But sometimes we find ourselves at times going, God, from my perspective, what's going on looks so messy. It's the fact that you're seeing underneath the masterpiece. You're seeing underneath the finished product. But when we can see it from God's perspective, we sit down and look down on it and we go, oh, this makes perfect sense. But sometimes it's really about perspective, and it's a matter of just a few inches. So for a little kid that's underneath maybe the masterpiece being sewn or stitched or crocheted together, it looks tangled and it doesn't make sense. But if they just stood up and looked down on it, they would see that it was a masterpiece. So it really comes down to just a perspective. It comes down to, am I going to choose to stay down? But sometimes in front of an audience member today that's listening, they're doing everything they can to stand up, but can't. Which is so important that you surround yourself with people that when you can't stand up, that somebody's going to try to lift you up. We say this a lot in our culture and our family. The only time you're ever afforded to look down on somebody is when you're helping them out. And if we could ever begin to embrace that, then there are folks that find themselves that are so victimized by things that have been done to them, or been victimized by their own decisions that they have made that has caused them to walk in guilt. But we serve a God that gives hope to the hopeless. He's a voice to the voiceless. He's an advocate for those that find themselves enslaved. And he's a God who gives new beginnings. And there has to be a moment where you understand that this is more than a message. This is more than a podcast. This could potentially be a breakthrough for somebody right now that goes, you know what? These two dudes on the other side of this microphone believe that miracles still happen. And for somebody listening today that goes, that's cool, that's y'all, but you don't know my situation. I don't have to fully know your situation to know this, that there's a God that knows your situation, that sees it from the 30,000-foot angle, and you're seeing it from the 2-foot angle. And God just wants you today to take one step. You may not be able to fully stand up, but would you at least lean into the fact that I don't want to stay here? Could you embrace the fact that God He doesn't want you to stay right where you're at in a victim mentality? And we say this a lot in our culture. God didn't call you to be a victim, but a victor.
Right. Man, it's almost like you're in my head, because I know it's the Holy Spirit.
Come on.
Because I got to be real with you.
Yes, sir.
What you just said, it's like, boom, this fireworks going off. Because when people fight, it's not always the right thing. Because you can always say, I'm going to fight to be successful. But just like you were talking about earlier, if you're fighting for the wrong thing, you're just fighting for a material thing. Mm-hmm. You're not really fighting for the bigger picture.
Right.
I always like to say this thing. Life is like a canvas, a blank canvas. Mm-hmm. You know, our gift is the paintbrush. Mm-hmm. Our actions is the paint. Mm-hmm. And whatever we do in that whole lifetime is the masterpiece. Mm-hmm. But there's no masterpiece if it's not purpose-driven.
It's good. It's real good.
Because God's the one that gave you that. Mm-hmm. So touch on that, because there's a call, like you said, but how we respond is what makes the difference. And that's going to transition to leadership that you're going to get into.
Yeah. So just the thought that came into my mind about a blank canvas and that we're holding the paintbrush. Your life leaves behind a signature. Every signature is different. Every jump shot's different. It's almost personalized. It's customized. But sometimes what creates the signature that makes it unique to who you are is through the challenges and the adversity. And so your signature is very unique to who you are because the challenges and adversity that you faced has ultimately shaped and sculpted you. But it, as we alluded to earlier, but it can make you bitter or it can make you better. Yeah. But bless people, and hurt people, hurt people. And so there's a choice that you have to make of, okay, what I've been dealt in my life, it's not for the faint of heart. But for some reason, and we know that God's not the author of evil. He's the giver of all good things. He's the anchor in the storm. He's the calm in the crisis. He is the platform in the pain. He's the one that takes our messes and turns them into miracles, that takes something that's insignificant and makes it significant. It's something that in essence would seem as if it has no potential to becoming something of great purpose. Mm-hmm. You have to understand and embrace the fact that at times we don't have the full story. And here's the reason why. If we knew the full story, I think for many of us, we would go, there's no way. God, what you want to do with me is what? Ephesians 3 says this, that the plans that he has for us are bigger than we could ever imagine, that we could ever take the pen and write out. So, for example, what would you do for God if you knew you couldn't fail?
That's true.
Like, what would that be? So often, just with that one question, your mind goes into 1,000 different directions. But immediately, the list becomes very short because we automatically think we're going to fail.
Yeah.
And so when you begin to look at just your journey and you go, everything that I've been through, every bit of the hardship that I've been through is for the purpose of somehow, some way, and I love how you said this, that what I've been through in my pain is someone else's medicine. And if you can begin to stop looking inward and begin to look outward, then you really begin to use your gifts, talents, and abilities to be the pen or the brush that's being led by the hand of God to articulate or to paint or to depict something that is of true beauty and has multiple dimensions to it. We live in a Photoshop society. Everything is airbrushed.
You can say that.
Nothing seems to be genuine. Mm-hmm. It's varnish or it's vinyl. And I love what Bob Goff said. Bob Goff said this, in a world where everything is varnished, we don't need more varnish. Mm-hmm. We need a carpenter.
Ooh.
Wow. We need a carpenter.
That's good.
That could get to the root of the issue. And here's what happens. Oftentimes in the pain and the journey, we try to treat our issues symptomatically. It's like putting Band-Aids over bullet wounds. Yeah. So we need the neosporin of who God is that provides the healing at the root of the infection to deal with this at the root of our disappointment or maybe that situation that caused us to have the pain. But here's what we do. We master lock it, padlock it, and we think that I can somehow closet or container my pain in this dimension of my life. It doesn't work that way. And so, for example, we think that we could take the venom, the anger, the resentment, and we could somehow put that in a vicinity in our heart and it not affect the rest of our life. It affects every dimension of your life, which is why hurt people. Yeah. And bless people. And so if we can learn as a society to stop addressing things symptomatically and get to the root of the issue, So, for example, if somebody says on the podcast today, they're listening and they go, Pastor Ed, you don't know my addiction.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to say it's an addiction to alcohol, I know for somebody this is going to sound a little counterintuitive. I would say this: your alcohol is not your problem. It's how you're trying to cope with your problem.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you trying to cope with alcohol to medicate that problem? What can we go beyond that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really about the fact that it relaxes you, it causes you to have fun at a party, etc.? Or is there something that you're trying to numb the pain of, hoping that today in this space that it's quote unquote not affecting you?
Mm-hmm.
But if you live in that mentality, and it could be alcohol today, it could be something else tomorrow.
Yeah.
If we live in a symptomatic mindset where we're going to try to address the problems that we're facing with things that are temporary, you can't fix a lifetime of problems with temporary answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got to get to the root of it.
That's true.
But nobody wants to talk about that because that causes somebody to go, but I gotta bring up the past.
I have to open up.
Got to open up. Yeah. And who do I do that with? Yeah. Which is why I said earlier that everything's Photoshopped. So we want everybody to look like we got it all together. And you get 1,000 likes, and then all of a sudden you find worth from that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting now that I love that's happening in social media, etc., is that you got some folks that are actually just going, no filters. As a matter of fact, we've hashtagged that, no filter, right?
Yeah.
So I think we got to live a life, no filter. And I'm not saying that we just say whatever we want. I'm just saying in regard to the fact that we just begin to stop symptomatically trying to treat lifelong problems with temporary answers.
And two, I like what you said about the addiction. A lot of times addiction is just a cover-up of the pain that we have experienced. And instead of going to the only medicine that exists, we go to what I call counterfeit medicine. Stuff that everyone's saying is good for you. Try, take that. It'll make you feel good. Take that. It'll make you feel good. It'll make you feel good for moments. But after that's gone,
absolutely,
what do you do then? I feel like I wasn't thinking about going this direction. I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
I feel like God has to rush us to the hospital to have emergency surgery. Because we talk about opening up. And it's like, if you don't take care of yourself for so long, eventually you're going to have some issues.
Absolutely. He's the greatest cardiologist of all.
Doctorate, right?
So that's what he does, man. He gives us a new heart. And that's so if we're not careful, we make religion symptomatic. All right? So that's a whole nother podcast. But we even try to somehow medicate our decisions that we've made or the mistakes that we've made, and we just go, maybe if I add a little bit of religion to it, it'll change it. So this is what we say, that the good news of who Jesus is not about only behavior modification, it's about heart transformation. He is the greatest cardiologist of all, so he gives you a new heart. And then guess what that does? It changes the way you live your life from the inside out. Oftentimes we're trying to change our life from the outside in.
I knew you was a preacher, man.
No,
because my mind is like going 10,000 miles per hour because we were going to talk about leadership and community. I can't help but think about whoever listening to podcasts, you're the thread.
That's it.
Because you know how you have your favorite T-shirt, it's brand spanking new, and that one thread gets loose. It ruins the whole shirt.
Don't pull it. Don't pull the thread.
You know,
it's going to unravel.
It's amazing how you just said that because that's part of leadership with God. If you trying to go another way, good luck.
Good luck. It'll unravel.
I got to take you on there because this is too good because it comes full circle because, like you said, it looks like a mess. I mean, you can be listening to this podcast and you say, well, you don't know what happened to me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, 2 hours ago. But it could be a mess right now. But it could be because you're not in that position where God's trying to put you. Because a lot of times you try to avoid it.
Yeah.
You're like, no, God, don't do that. No, I'm cool with it. People like me. Everything's going well. Why are you trying to take me out of my comfort zone? Why are you calling me? Like, call somebody else.
So
what you say to that person who's fighting that? Because maybe they feel like, I like church, but I've been down that road before. What do you say to those people who they want change, but they're avoiding the main thing that will keep them on the right path?
Just because it gets hard doesn't mean that God's not in it. And I think for many of us, I had a high school friend that said this to me. He said, I don't want to be a Christian because I know what that means. And I just said, expand and expound on that. He said, because it's a different way of life that requires you to say no to yourself. And he said, I want to be able to do the things I want to be able to do, and I have a guilty conscience. So what he was saying is in essence, the embodiment of how a lot of folks live. It's, I want to do what I do and still feel like I'm good with God. Yeah. But what people don't realize is that somewhere in the midst of you thinking that you are in control of your life, you're missing out on the greatest significance that you can have in a society or in the workplace or in your journey of effectiveness of the reason of being on this planet by doing things that not many people do. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So for us, what we say is just because it got hard doesn't mean that God's in it. Matter of fact, because it got hard is proof that God's in it, because the enemy wants you to give up. The enemy wants to cause you to find dissatisfaction in the journey. And so the enemy tries to cause you to doubt God, deny God, defy God. And in the process of that, you're going, okay. But we all know this. What the enemy does is he honey dips lies. Mm-hmm. He promises you this, and then when you think that you are getting this, he counterfeits it. Mm-hmm. And then it's empty. And so I would say to the person that just goes, I've done this before, it didn't make sense, I would dare to even say, listen, it's not that what you believed was wrong. It's the fact that sometimes in life, it's not so much what God's calling you to do, it's also who he called you to do it with. Mm-hmm. And so you might find yourself going, I tried that before. But were you surrounding yourself with people that were, I'm trying that too? Because that's the game changer. Because sometimes life is full of lessons that sometimes you're gleaning from somebody else. We were never created to be alone. And so that's what happens. A lot of times folks try to do the God thing all by themselves. And we weren't made to do that. And so there's a lot of life and vitality and vibrancy and even revival that comes from me, of meeting brothers like you and being in the barbershop today and knowing the stories of these brothers that are in here trying to make this world a better place. I'm better because I was here. I'm better because I got to listen to these stories. And so my faith is, if you will, is encouraged by being around somebody else. And so the more we can surround ourselves in that mindset of, yeah, it's going to be hard. Jesus said it was going to be hard. That's what I love about Jesus. He didn't just somehow try to sell us something and go, hey, it's going to be awesome, man. You follow me and everything's going to work out. He goes, in this world you will have tribulation, but be a good cheer, I've overcome the world.
Man, it's like this. Don't forget who holds the thread.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Because how many times have we trying to snatch out his hand? Mm-hmm. What was funny is we can't be snatched out.
That's exactly it.
Because if you're here, you're here.
It's it. Always and forever.
There's no question to it. There's no guessing game. If you belong to him, you belong to him. Period. Mic drop.
That's it. If we could really embrace this, I think it'd make a difference for our audience today. You may not know what tomorrow holds, but when you know the one who holds tomorrow,
yeah,
it's a different lens in which you interpret the difficult situations. Let me say it this way. So if you got, like I'm wearing glasses right now, and so this is the lens in which I see the world. Just because of impaired vision, my prescription allows me to see clearer. I take these off, things get fuzzy. So we have to ask the question, what's the lens in which people interpret their circumstances? Usually the way that people interpret their circumstances is, God, you don't love me. But because if you love me, this wouldn't be, I wouldn't be seeing what I'm seeing right now. But if the first thing that we could see is, God, you do love me, and the proof of that is that you sent your son Jesus to die for me. And so if I can remind myself, if that can be the first thing I see, God, you love me and you proved it to me and you sent your son Jesus to die for me, then I understand no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Then I understand all things work together for good to those who love God according to his purpose. It's just the fact when we take the cross from the first thing that we see, we're of course going to interpret our circumstances as like, God, you're not for me. But he says, I'm for you, and here's how I know I'm for you. I sent my son Jesus to die for you. And so when you can see it that way, then you go, if he gives me Jesus, is he going to hold anything back from me? Because I'm not giving up my son.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up my daughters for a world that would say thanks but no thanks. So it's the love of the Father that causes me to go, I want to live my life for you.
Man. Don't you hate when time runs out, man? Because I want to get this in before we wrap up. Because you were talking about community and leadership the whole time of the show. You talking about threats and other amazing metaphors. But just to brush up on the show, for people out there who are trying to find the answer, because I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of false answers. But to find the answer, the only answer that can solve any problem that you put and present, what do you tell to that person who's looking for the answer, and how can they know the answer?
Well, the answer is Jesus. Now, it's at that moment that everybody goes, hello, we knew you were going to say that. But what I would say is it's not a mystical version of Jesus. It's not an academic version of Jesus. It's not even a podcast version of Jesus. It is a real, authentic, like I'm sitting with you right here, right now, relationship with Jesus that changes everything. And our listener today can have that relationship with Jesus. It's not go clean your life up and come to Jesus. It's come to Jesus just as you are. But be sure of this, he won't leave you there.
Man, I had to say this because when you just said that, I just imagined someone trying to pick up broken glass and say, "But God, I need to clean this up," because you see how it's got it everywhere. It's going to take me a long time to clean this up and come to you and say, "Hey, fix it." But really, God is saying, "I'm already here.
Already here.
I got it. I'll clean it up for you."
Already done. And then repurpose that in a way that you would never have imagined if I told you from the beginning. You wouldn't have believed it. Now listen, I know this is going to probably air soon. You know that I'm a closet hip-hop artist, right? You know that, right? So I just wrote a little something.
Do it. This is breaking news. I love it.
In honor of Dr. King.
Yes, sir.
Okay? But it's a little bit of different perspective, right? So I'm a little nervous just even reading this.
Oh, it's okay. Take your time.
I have a dream that lives in me. Oh, sweet land of liberty. This dream is way overdue, but I'm trying to say it fresh and anew. Just because I'm white doesn't mean I'm white privilege. The government housing taught me that my worth is being made in God's image. I have a dream that lives in me. Oh, sweet land of liberty. This dream is way overdue, but I'm trying to say it fresh and anew. See, being a minority doesn't mean that you're just from another country. See, discrimination happens to the junkie and the kid that runs cross country. For the people with disability, they're not a liability. They're just different. But to me, they're significant. See, I know that firsthand because my mom and dad talked to me with their hands. I have a dream that lives in me. Oh, sweet land of liberty. This dream is way overdue, and I'm trying to say it fresh and anew. Racism is not just a one-way street. Though my son is black and I'm white, why do people stare at me like they want to fight? Could we just see each other, as Dr. King said, the content in our heart and not the color of our skin? So I'll say it again. I have a dream that lives in me. Oh, sweet land of liberty. This dream is way overdue, but I'm trying to say it fresh and anew. This is the reason why CBC is the place to be, because this dream is living in we. See, we at CBC, and CBC to we. See, it's Jesus that is the answer to that dream that's living in me. He's the one that makes freedom ring, so let it be. So free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
What I have to say to that is every person listening, I hope at least one person caught that. Because what we just talked about, the thread, and God holding the thread.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even know what else I can say to that, but...
So my first friend was African American, was in the 5th grade.
Yeah.
My very first best friend.
Yeah.
And, so I think, one, to be the only white dude in this barbershop right now and know that I'm not.
Yeah.
I just wish society could see this.
Yeah.
Everybody's shouting, nobody's listening. They're labeling everybody. And, this is real. And I want to be a part of the solution. And thank you for letting me be on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
No, like I said, with you being here, man, like, it's an honor because I know you're busy.
Oh,
I know you're busy.
We're all busy.
And we respect people who are really tight scheduled, and for you to open up your schedule just to talk to us is a true honor. And I know at least one person is going to be changed because of what was said today. And we talk about the call. Well, when we respond, all we have to do is respond. God's not asking you to be an expert.
Yeah.
He's not asking you to play Beethoven. He's just asking you to get on the keys.
Yeah, come on.
Just try.
Come on.
You try, and I'll fill up where you lack.
It's good.
Because what we talked about earlier is whatever you're not, you can be. So if you don't think you're good enough, you don't think you're smart enough, you don't think you're intelligent to do anything in life, that's just you in the way. How many times do we look in the mirror and be disgusted, but we're missing the whole picture? It's not you. It's okay to have flaws.
Absolutely.
That's why we have to shave.
Yeah.
That's why we have to, take a shower, because it's maintenance. Our whole life is maintenance until we take the last breath.
Come on.
So on that, I'm going to let you have the floor. How can people go to CBC?
Well, Community Bible Church, I always say this. We're not a church for the north side. We're a church for all sides. And so even though we're on the north side, we're a church for all sides. And so we're there off the loop, 604-281. And for us, 5 services on a weekend, Saturday at 5, Sunday at 8:30, 10, 11:45, and 1:21. You can also check it out on onlinechurch.com.
There you go. Once again, I hope you all have enjoyed this, because I feel like I can just fly like Superman, because, what we talked about, you have to at least take this to note. When you stop listening to this podcast and go to your real life and reality hits and you get in traffic and all the craziness start happening, one thing you do not want to forget is what Pastor Ed was talking about. Remember who holds tomorrow. If you can just keep that on your brain whenever a storm hits, just remember who holds tomorrow.
It's good.
That will give me peace for the rest of my life. I hope it gives whoever's listening you peace too. And what we always say every show, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.